So this is our presentation on the New England Science and Sailing Grant Project. Before we start, I'd like to thank everyone who was able to attend our presentation today. Most importantly, we'd like to thank our community partners, Kelly and Maddie, for not only helping us, but for being here today. So that's super nice. Despite having to work through Zoom, I think we made the best out of it. And it was a real pleasure to be able to work with both of you in some capacity. So thank you again for taking the time to meet with us today and in the past. I'd also like to thank Andrew Lopez for meeting with us as well to help us with finding sources related to our project. That was sort of integral to our annotated bibliography, which is supplementary to our presentation. So that was incredibly helpful as well. And let's get started.
New England Science and Sailing Foundation is a nonprofit based out of Connecticut that educates students from all different economic backgrounds on and off the water. This is done through sailing, powerboats, marine science, and classroom material. There are 2 locations. One is in Stonington and one is in New London. It was founded in 2002 by Stonington Harbor Yacht Club. NEST provides year-round support for students and their families. During the coronavirus pandemic, they have increased their online and hybrid learning programs to meet the needs of families during this difficult time. They describe themselves as an ocean adventure nonprofit that provides STEM-based education programs and seeks to engage students in experiential learning that builds confidence, teamwork, and leadership skills that are vital to their futures.
Their core values for this mission, as stated on their website, are inclusiveness, experiential learning, personal growth, and stewardship. The Shore Support Program during the school year provides high-quality educational experiences in support of public and private school systems. They provide accredited classes during the school year, as well as after-school programs to aid parents who struggle to meet the demands of their work schedule and their child's school schedule. The organization also provides online learning, summer camps, adult sailing, and one-time community events, which include a guest speaker series, benefit galas, and art shows. NEST often partners with other community organizations that share their core values and can contribute to their mission. These include the National Marine Educators Association, American Corps, and the New England Association of Schools and Colleges, amongst others.
This shore support program was created in September with the purpose of offering academic support via online and hybrid methods to students K through 8 in the New London and Stonington area. They service a maximum of 124 students via enrichment programs, mentorship, and homework help.
So the Great Shore Support Program has 3 main goals. The first, to provide an in-person and individualized academic support for their students. And by doing this, they like to tailor it to each student to be most effective. And they do this by using it's coordinated by a NEST educator. The second goal is to support parents with childcare options. And they do this during the students' free time. And by doing this, their hope is to provide enriching science and sailing programs that help empower learning to improve socio-emotional skills for these students.
So unfortunately, the 2021 Environmental Education and Stewardship grants have not yet been released, so we use the 2020 grant. However, they are very similar from year to year. So what are the Environmental Education and Stewardship grants? Dominion Energy awards up to $1.5 million to nonprofit organizations and schools that are working to improve the environment and provide educational experiences in communities served by Dominion Energy. Schools are eligible to apply for grants up to $5,000 and nonprofits up to $25,000. Dominion Energy will prioritize grants that focus on one or more of the following: educating K-12 students and the public about environmental stewardship, protecting and preserving natural habitats, and improving open spaces and making nature more accessible. The requirements for the grant consist of a specific action plan, including project activities, locations, and targeted audiences. For schools, include grade levels. Anticipated outcomes that address identified community need, effective evaluation methods, and plans to sustain the program and share results with Dominion Energy and the community. If NESS is awarded the grant, they will be asked to meet with Dominion Energy's representatives to review their proposal. NESS will also need to complete a detailed final report 1 year after receiving the grant. However, there are some restrictions as to what the grant program will not cover. These are support for capital and/or land acquisition, long-term research projects, general operating grants, and overhead indirect costs or endowments.
NESS is the perfect fit for a community education program like Shore Support because it aligns with their values and their belief that kids learn best when they experience things firsthand and when they learn from face-to-face interactions rather than through the often challenging lens of the internet. Grant funding could help them keep this program running smoothly in a variety of ways. For example, NEST could provide more disadvantaged families additional financial help to become a part of Shore Support through their tuition scholarship program. And like any service running in-person activities in 2020, funding could also be used to cover the costs of things like gloves, sanitizers, and other materials that are needed to keep children and educators safe. They could also use the funding if they need to cover the cost of lessons that include specific materials, since they're all about experiential and scientific learning that usually requires a lot of specific supplies.
Cool. So going off of that, so we're going to go into a little bit more of the information on the value that this project adds to the children, adds to the community, and also can add to the economy. So one of the struggles that a lot of people have reported with online learning is there really isn't as much structure, and this can be a really big struggle for the younger children. And that's part of the massive appeal of the Shore Support program, because it provides a little bit more structure for these younger students in their daily lives that they're not really getting with online learning. And not only that, online learning has also massively, unfortunately, cut the number of educational hours they're getting during a normal school year, just due to the nature of it. And one of the opportunities that Shore Support provides is when they're not in the environment, when they're not doing schoolwork or when they're not in class, it gives them an opportunity to do additional educational opportunities that they normally wouldn't be receiving otherwise. And another huge benefit of the Shore Support program is it provides an opportunity for one-on-one support in person, which is something that's not really happening nowadays due to online learning. But once again, Shore Support can offer an opportunity for parents and for children who really struggle with online learning. And one of the other really important things about the Shore Support program is that online learning doesn't really give a chance for children to develop social and emotional skills that they normally would be developing otherwise. Even though children are having to, wear masks and be socially responsible and maintain their distance in order to protect themselves and their families, they're still getting an opportunity to develop social and emotional skills that like they would in school. And now I'm going to go into a little bit more of the data behind some of the facts I just said. So for starters, we have what we have up on here is due to the nature of online learning, many people are missing school days because they don't really have a great environment at home to do online learning. And what Shore Support does is it provides an opportunity for these children to have a place where they can go and do their schoolwork. And additional funding to this program would allow scholarship opportunities to expand the program to those who normally can't afford the program. And those are the people who are most likely to, unfortunately, not have a great environment at home to do online learning. And as you can see here, and this was all done pre-COVID, there's a massive change in standardized test scores when you start missing more and more days of school. And missing online learning is equally just as effective and damaging to standardized test scores.
So there was a fair amount of academic research into remote learning pre-COVID. This is from a study that was published in the journal International Review of Research in Open and Distance Learning, bit of a mouthful. It surveyed 541 students and asked them how satisfied they were with their online course and what contributed to that satisfaction or lack thereof. So you can see that while it was broadly popular, with a majority being satisfied or very satisfied, there's a very significant minority of people that were either dissatisfied or very dissatisfied. And when you look at the reasons for that dissatisfaction, the biggest ones are lack of interaction with teachers and peers, structure, which that one is maybe not as inherent, maybe a little bit, and incompatibility with learning style. Sorry, dogs coming down the stairs, unanticipated. So what the only real takeaway you can make, I think, from this, well, you can make a few, but the biggest one is that some people's brains just aren't hardwired to do online learning well. A major limitation of the study that I should mention is basically all of the online learning before the pandemic was at the collegiate and graduate levels. And there's very good reason, as Noah's going to talk over the next slide, to think that in addition to these inherent differences in learning style, K through 8 students just struggle much more than undergraduates with online learning.
Yeah, so as Josh was going off and saying that due to pre-COVID, we didn't really know the effects of online learning on not only K through 8 students, but also high school students. And one of the things that the spring unfortunately told us is that K through 8 students and our public education system really wasn't well equipped in order to deal with the challenges of remote learning. Because as we see the data here, children only progressed in about 2/3 of their standard improvement in their standardized test scores as they normally would in a normal school year. And what this data shows us is that the first 2/3 of the school year, when the children were in person, they were progressing as normal. And then COVID happened and they all get sent home, and not due to the fault of the schools or anything, but just due to the nature of the pandemic, the schools tried to scramble something together, and it really wasn't as effective as it could have been, because the students didn't really progress, but they also didn't hinder, which is a good thing. But I think programs like NEST and Shore Support can, boost students' performance in schools due to that support and physical interaction that they're not really getting. And one of the other things I want to talk about briefly is that the project doesn't only hinder, or the COVID doesn't only hinder children, but it also hinders parents and the economy. And some of the statistics we have on the pandemic, unfortunately, is there's a 4.8% decrease in Q1 GDP for Connecticut alone, 35,000 businesses shut down, 531,000 unemployments were claimed, 1,300 schools were closed, impacting 570,000 students, 137 universities closed, impacting 190,000 college and university students. So what looking here at this data shows us is that everybody was impacted, and that parents of elementary school kids were also impacted. And a lot of parents these days are having to work, both parents are having to work in order to make two jobs in order to make both ends meet. And they really can't afford, and if both parents are having to go in person, because more places are doing that nowadays, they don't really have anybody to stay at home and watch and make sure that their children are still going to school and still doing their classwork. And what Shore Support does is it provides an opportunity for parents who are continuing to have work during this pandemic to have somebody watch and make sure that their children are actually doing the work as they should be. Because if it's left up to children's own devices, they're likely to get distracted and maybe not even attend class virtually on their own.
So like Mario mentioned, the grant opens in January and closes in April, so we can't exactly submit anything at the end of this process. And also because of that, grant requirements like a review meeting with Dominion after the grant's been submitted, and 1 year after the grant's been gained, a report, those are obviously not on the table at this time. So out of the remaining 4, we graded them on a scale of red, very far away from completion, to yellow, close to completion, and green, at or basically at completion. So for a specific plan of action, Shore Support is an existing program. The logistics and planning are already in place. They have experience with it, with which they can calibrate their expectations of what they need and what it'll take. Effective evaluation methods. Shore Support has an efficient survey program already in place. They use pre and post surveys of students to measure things like self-control, teamwork, communication, perseverance, and confidence. They also give parents surveys after the program to ask things like, did this help you, go to work when otherwise you'd have to stay with your kid, that sort of thing. Anticipated outcomes, they have lots of metrics that they have, like I talked about previously. But to my knowledge, they don't yet have, we want to increase perseverance by X% or anything like that. So we put that at a yellow. And in terms of plans to sustain the program, Shore Support does not rely on grant funding, so that's not really an issue.
So to sort of conclude some of the points that we've made, we just sort of want to re-emphasize a couple of things that really make Shore Support sort of attractive for this grant. So first and foremost, the importance of education. We want to emphasize the importance of education during a time like this and the importance of investing in it. And that's what our community partnership was all about with NES. NES is uniquely capable for a situation like the one that we are currently living in. They're not just offering the Shore Support program, but they also have online experiential learning through a variety of lessons, which is why this funding isn't just a good idea, but a necessary one. This funding allows the program to further grow and give opportunities to children whose families wouldn't normally get this opportunity. Shore Support is very flexible. Schools are struggling to meet the educational needs of students in this new and rapidly changing environment. And this is sort of where Shore Support is like sort of the middleman and thrives. And so they recognize that while some students thrive, other students struggle during this sort of online hybrid learning model. You have parents who are frustrated with how to assist their children during these unconventional times and methods of learning. And so NES is very uniquely strongly capable of providing, high quality educational experiences in the support of public and private school systems. They don't just assist with work, but they, like we've said, they help develop kids' socio-emotional skills. So it's far more than just a simple sort of tutoring program, but they really care about, developing this next generation. And that's another point we want to make is that, it's time to be mentors for the future generation. Even though daily contact is very missed, this is sort of where the lesson portion itself comes into play. There are 20 to 30 minute blocks of time during the day of the Shore Support program where kids can go outside, go on boats, learn about sailing, being in the water. And so NES sort of like fills in the nooks and crannies of where, school systems might not be able to. And so NES is sort of this mentor in rebuilding our communities in the best way possible for students at this time. And, these students represent the next generation of thinkers and of scientists. And so Shore Support is sort of the bridge between, camps and school systems, and they sort of fill in all the gaps for students at this time. And now Annie will also give some concluding points.
Yeah, I think we also want to just place importance on the connections being made throughout this program and how valuable the enrichment programs are to both education and to just the happiness of children at this time. I think that the work that is done there allows for children to have access to alternative forms of education that not all children do, which can also be very helpful in the future and just teaching them overall foundational skills that can really better their future and better the community as a whole.
Thank you.
Excellent job, everyone. If we could give the NES group a round of applause for their presentation. Very good job, everyone. Enjoyed listening to that. What we're going to do now is we're going to, as we often do, move into a time of Q&A. I'm going to repaste and send out the feedback form. So definitely you can ask questions via that. They won't be answered in real time, but I'm sure that the NES team would love to hear any questions people have and be happy to respond to them.
Hi guys, that was a great presentation. We had a lot of fun working with you, so thank you. My question was, so as students who clearly have had to transition to online learning as well, thinking about the metrics that we were looking at to determine our outcomes for the Shore Support program, what do you think is the strongest metric that we can use to determine success of the program.
Personally, I think self-control is probably the metric that you use that's most important for online learning, just because it's a lot less structured. So being able to, control how much you work and getting stuff done on time, I think is very important for success.
I also just think in general, I mean, this is kind of hard to quantify, but just engagement in general with students. But I think that the way that, and what's great about Shore Support is the blended aspect that you guys try to provide in not only helping with their work, but also sort of providing sort of things that are uniquely available through NES, like these sailing and sort of science supplementary times. I think that's where you guys definitely sort of set yourselves apart. And that's something that you can sort of look to see how kids react to having that experience available to them that they wouldn't necessarily get through their online experiences. And so the fact that you guys are able to not only help with the online experiences, but also kind of, show why you guys are more capable per se than others is like where you guys really thrive. And that's like, through your sailing or your sort of outdoor mini activities during the day. Again, it's like hard to quantify that, but I think just the mere fact that that exists is what sets you guys apart. And I think that's really great.
Yeah, guys, I just wanted to, I don't per se have a question, but I also wanted to say that I'm impressed with your presentation. In just the short time of working with Maddie and I, you were able to really grasp our organization, our goals, outcomes, and to really fully understand the program of Shore Support, which I'm really impressed by. Very often we explain our organization and our programs, and sometimes it's just hard for somebody from the outside to fully grasp it. And I think you guys did an incredible job in a short period of time doing that. So just wanted to congratulate you on an awesome presentation.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I have a question that I'm curious about. I noticed forming groups, there was a huge amount of interest in working with NES. There's quite a lot of enthusiasm among all the people who signed up. And so I'm just curious, you guys kind of had looked at the NES website in advance of expressing preferences. What have you learned in the process of kind of doing this project about NES? And has it kind of, have you been surprised along the way in post-selection doing the project?
I think for me, when I first looked at Nest, I saw it more as an activity-based learning experience, more designed for the outdoors. And as I kind of learned more about Nest, I realized how much they really put into the student, not only in the activities that they offer, but as far as improving their education. And for me, that was really a cool thing to kind of learn. Not only do they want to give students kind of a mental break from the daily work that comes along with an education, but they also allow you to learn through different fun activities, and they tailor it to the student itself, which is very unique to find. A lot of times you'll see programs that are built just as a whole, and all these students will go in and have to do it, but they kind of individualize it for each student, because every student does have a different style to learn that's better for them, whether it's online or hands-on activities. So I thought that was something that was really cool that I got to learn about Nest and what they do.
Yeah, going off Austin's point, I think the first thing that came to mind when I saw Nest was, I wish I was still young enough to get to do it, because it sounds really cool. But another thing that I noticed that I can't remember specifically the dates, but I just remember looking at the website one day and then checking it maybe a week later and seeing that they had added like this online experiential learning portion of the website, like with, I don't know, maybe 10 or 15 different subjects. And I think that really just speaks to NES as a whole, just like their ability to adapt to the times, like as stuff is happening, developing Shore Support, developing this other experiential learning program in addition to that. I think they just, and I can't speak about other programs, but I just have this feeling that they're not like worried about staying in a rigid sort of structure, but they really try to tailor their organization to the times, to the student in every which way that they can. And they're not worried about adhering to some sort of mold, but really just sort of helping in any way that they can, which makes them super effective, I think.
Excellent. Well, I would love to continue the discussion, but let's give the NEST group another round of applause. Thank them so much for their hard work and efforts. And we've heard from both Maddie and Kelly, our community partners, but we really appreciate your generosity with your time and your willingness to work with the group. I know they've really enjoyed their interactions with you. So thank you so much, Maddie and Kelly, for your efforts.
Thank you, Maddie and Kelly.
You're welcome. It
Thank
was
you
a
so
really
much.
great opportunity.
Pleasure. Thank you so much.